All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome for Cyber Monday. I got my regular Cody Davis back, but we have David and Morgan today, some 9 to 5 investing couple. So, morning, everyone.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Yeah, so we'll have David and Morgan quickly introduce themselves. If you want a little more information, I just interviewed them. That dropped yesterday, so you can check out a long form content on that. But real brief, maybe David and Morgan, you guys can introduce yourselves and what do you guys invest in?
Yeah, absolutely. My name's David. This is my wife, Morgan. We're the 9 to 5 investing couple. My W 2 job, I'm a New York State Police investigator. And my wife, I'll let you.
I stay home with our two kids. That's my full time job. I currently enjoy doing that. I was a teacher for many, many years, but decided to make the switch 8 years ago when we had our first son, and that's it.
Yep. And then we invest in long term leases. We have 13 sober living homes. And as of right now, they're all in Florida, but we are closing on a 14th one in Tennessee currently.
Very cool. I think initially we're gonna probably start. I said we're gonna get wealthy or get rich in 2026. And Cody just recently did a video with Michael Zuber. I think that came out last week. But Cody, do you want to kind of touch on that video you recently did with Zuber?
Yeah, well, the main topic of the video was what I'd recommend to a family friend member if they were getting started today. And as far as real estate investing goes, I would just try and lower your cost of living. I did a whole bunch of the apartment stuff and did a lot of apartment investing, did some flips, did some burrs. And if I had to start over, recommend to a friend, I think it'd be really smart just to do a house hack and actually live in buy a duplex and try and turn the duplex into a triplex, or buy a house and turn it into a duplex, or something like that, where you could add extra dwelling units and get your cost to low or zero. That was the main idea.
Yeah, no, I agree 1,000%. I think that's a great way to get into real estate. A million different avenues. And, I love what we do. If I had to do it over again, and if I was just starting out, I think I would look at, to be honest, I'd look at something like a storage unit, something that has very low overhead, something where you, don't get me wrong, you do have quote unquote tenants, but you don't necessarily deal with them on a day-to-day basis like we all do. There's always a need for it, and it's all throughout the country. And I think that would be, personally, I think that's a great starting point as well.
Yeah, I agree. We talked about that a couple of times, actually, even like in the mix of our sobriety houses. But that's a whole nother niche to get into. But if we were to start over, I
Yeah.
think that's a great way to go.
Absolutely.
Everyone, good morning. That's tuning in the chat. I also want to say that there is David and Morgan's Instagram page. So if you want to connect with them, reach out to them over there. And they're trying to build that social media side too. And that's what Morgan's kind of running right now. But yeah, I think there's a lot of ways to do it, right? But I think everyone is also looking at 2026 for a lot of opportunities. And I think, yeah, there's different avenues, right? So definitely house hacking is one way to get started, especially, when you're a lot younger. And I think even Dion mentioned too, right? That's the best way if you just
Mhm.
graduated high school, right? If you're some way to get into some sort of house hack when you don't have all these other responsibilities, right, in your life. I think David and Morgan, your folks' journey did start a little later in your
Absolutely.
Mhm.
guys, same as mine, right? So the
Mhm.
house hack. I mean, I know people do it with kids. Was that ever? But what was the house hack ever an option or thought for you folks when you guys first started?
To be honest, no. If I touched a hammer, I'd probably burn down the house.
Yeah.
And then Mark, I think you'd have to go over there. No, for us, no. And especially being with such a long distance, all of our homes being in Florida, we live in upstate New York. It just wasn't an option. And at the time, once we got into all of this, our we had small little kids, and I think it would just be hard for us. I think I'm in my young 40s, but to find the time to do all that.
Yeah, plus we kind of did things backwards, if you will. I wouldn't say backwards, but we built our house. And that was a huge undertaking 6 years ago now. So our son was 1.5 when we moved in. So it took us 13 months to do that process. So in hindsight, I think house hacking would be great if we didn't have children. Not that you can't do it with kids, but just with our experience. it's a lot of hands-on and a lot of time. And I don't know how that would necessarily work at this stage of our life.
Yeah, one thing I would say, which is great for, having Cody on, having us on,
Mhm.
is definitely everyone in different stages of their life, which is
Mhm.
nice to see. And, you know, I think that there's just the point being that real estate works at many stages of life, and it can
Mhm.
work at any point.
So Cody, after that video with Zuber, I mean, do you think most people underestimate how long like getting rich or getting wealthy actually takes?
Yeah, for sure. And the thing is, you can be on the path and then you make a decision that sets you back a couple years. And so it gets even longer because you don't know what you don't know until you do.
Mhm.
So it's probably going to take people 10 years, realistically. I think Zuber's hit the nail on the head there.
Mhm.
You can do it faster. And I've never really worked a full-time job, but that also comes with its own stresses of doing it faster than the 10 years. And so people have to weigh how much stress they want to take on and how much risk they want to take on to try and speed up or slow down that journey.
There is a question here. I'm not sure who this is, but thank you for stopping by. Please hit the subscribe and like. But they're asking what other shared housing programs are out there. Now, at-risk women, shared senior housing, or even thinking about the Industrial Revolution era boarding home.
That's a good question.
Mm.
Um,
I
what-
mean, I think, just in our niche of sobriety homes, going online is actually, Mark, we talked about this the other day. I went online and I just put in a generic search, how many sobriety homes or recovery homes are there in the country? And the list was, I mean, there was over 9,000. So I'm assuming they're everywhere. You just have to find them. I say ChatGPT is a great resource to find information like that. Even a basic Google search,
Mhm.
you can just put in those keywords and you should get some hits.
Yeah, wherever you live, within the United States, there's programs, there's homes, and honestly, just as simple as a Google search.
Mhm.
And when we brought it up yesterday, obviously over 9,000 homes, across the nation, and there's something for everyone in every area.
Hmm. Yeah, especially like at-risk women. There's some in New York where we live.
Mhm.
We have local organizations in our community, so they're also a great resource.
So you folks also mentioned self-storage. So Cody, have you ever thought about self-storage or even sober living homes?
Not sober living homes. I did look at some self storage. I had the opportunity to buy one small facility with room to expand, and it was $750,000. It was seller financed, 4% interest, zero down payment. It was just closing costs down. And I actually decided not to. I thought it was going to be a distraction from what I was working on. And the thing that I've heard on self storage is the small facilities just don't make a whole bunch of money, and they're enticing in the beginning, but then they could be a drag on your portfolio later if you continue to grow. And I'm planning to continue to grow, so I decided not to do it.
And you folks mentioned that would be one way that you guys might consider starting. But Chris Webb is asking, why storage and how do you elevate the income and expenses? For long-term rental income can be estimated with Rentometer and Zillow. Mortgages are easy to see costs. How does storage differ?
Absolutely. So the idea behind storage, the only reason that we mentioned that is when I met my mentor within real estate. He's older. He's in his 70s. He has homes across the United States. He has multiple storage facilities, and he had said of his vast portfolio, he enjoyed storage facilities. Now his are up in the Adirondacks in New York, so you don't have much competition up there, but you do have people that are bringing their boats, their RVs, and there's just an endless there's a never ending need for storage up there. And with regards to how do you calculate your return on a storage facility, For him, he's looking at, he'll build out a 20 by 12, unit, and then a 12 by 12 unit, and whatever have you. So he has a dollar cost per square footage for his facility. So his overall overhead costs for the facility is almost next to nothing. You don't have to have, you have, very minimal bill for electricity. You have plowing, and that's it. You don't have plumbing. You don't have HVAC. You don't have all the other overheads that we all do. So, which is fun. And so for him, it's a very, very, it's a very easy model to follow, and it's filled up right away. So for when he evaluates it, he looks at the dollar cost of, each unit and what that would cash flow versus obviously the overall quote unquote commercial mortgage for that facility, which is honestly very inexpensive. It's a couple $100,000 to build it out. Just because you don't have the infrastructure of a home, you have a very basic infrastructure.
Very cool. So Cody, going back a little bit to your video with Zuber about getting wealthy in 2026, and I know your journey started at a fairly young age. Do you think like you had, I guess maybe I don't know if bad habits is the right word with money at when you first got out of high school, or were you already kind of headed towards this path of building wealth with a good foundation?
If I had any bad habits, I wouldn't have caught it because I didn't really have any money. And that's been consistent throughout the journey. I listened to a lot of guidance. I met with him a few times. I listened a lot to Grant Cardone, and something he told me, and I've shifted a little bit away from that content, not 100%, but it's like always stay broke. So I took 100% of all my money all the time, the very little that I had. I borrowed money I didn't have, and I bought a bunch of properties. And so having shifted away from some of that, I guess you could say that some of those are bad habits, but it also got me where I wanted to go. It just, knowing what I know now, I would have gone a little bit slower. So I don't think I started with any bad habits because I didn't really have any money and I didn't have any guidance other than what I was hearing on the internet. And that guidance worked.
David and Morgan, did you folks have any, I guess, bad financial habits you would say before you guys jumped into this real estate journey?
I did, but what about, do you want me to speak to?
Yeah, you can. And then I want
Okay.
to touch upon something after, which I think is interesting.
So I grew up in Rhode Island. From Rhode Island, went to college there. After college, went into the U.S. Air Force active duty. And so I was active duty for 4 years. Going into active duty, I racked up a good amount of credit card debt. So that was fun. And so I had around $13,000 of credit card debt. Don't have that anymore. And so that was my bad habit, and learning that, doing 4 years of active duty, learning better financial discipline. And after that, obviously getting married, having kids, having other things to be responsible for besides just myself, definitely reeled myself in. And, when we got into real estate, we were very, very squared away. And when I started state police, as a trooper on the road, I came up with an arbitrary number, but we always took in 65% of my paycheck, and we would save that amount. The rest of it would go towards bills and anything else, any other necessities. But, I think just growing and learning, that was, my initial bad habit.
Yeah, and we were older too when we got into real estate.
Absolutely.
But what we did do before we got into real estate, I was staying home at the time, but we built a custom home because we wanted the American dream. I mean, if you will, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And that was before we were even making any money. So we built this beautiful custom home, and we had Dave's W-2 job. So we had a huge mortgage, before we were even making money. And I think that's what a lot of people do, right? They want the American dream, and they live paycheck to paycheck. And I don't necessarily think we were living paycheck to paycheck, but we did have a huge overhead of a mortgage.
Absolutely.
So in hindsight, going back, maybe we shouldn't have built a custom home, but at the time we weren't even going into real estate yet. But thought that was just interesting because I think there's a lot of people out there that want to be a homeowner for their family. And did we need to do that? Probably not. But
Yeah, I think those are normal steps everyone takes.
Yeah.
That, everyone
Yeah.
doesn't know any better.
right, hindsight.
Before we get into Alex's question for you folks, I do want Cody to add on to so like like his video with Zuber. Like, why do you think eliminating your housing costs could be the fastest way to get rich wealthy starting in 2026?
Well, my biggest cost has always been housing. When I was living in Renton, getting started, because for those who don't know, I lived in Tacoma. I moved in with a friend who ended up being a client of mine, and he was actually my best man at the wedding. So I guess that was a good investment, paying him rent. But then I ended up moving to Renton because I had a business partner who lived in Renton. So I was like, you know what? I should do everything he does. So I got the same car that he had. I moved 2 blocks from him. He's older than me. And so moving close to him, where his housing payment with everything was like a couple $1,000, my rent was more than that. And so I've seen in most of my adult life that my housing has been the largest expense. And had I not had that money could have gone elsewhere. And there was a point where with utilities and everything, it was $2,700 a month to live in a 2-bed, 2-bath. And it was just me. I mean, it was stupid. So even if I'd gotten a 1-bedroom, I would have been spending close to $2,000. And that's a lot of money. So if someone could get rid of that early on, then that amount of money could either go into paying down their mortgage because they'd be house hacking. It could be going into the S&P 500. It could go into saving up for a rental property that you're not going to house hack. Or it could be saving up for a house so you could actually do the custom home thing and move out, and then you'd have cash flow from your house hack. But it's so important because you can either grow the top line or you can prioritize the bottom line. And in the beginning, I grew the top line at all costs, and I didn't really care about the bottom line. And I built this big convoluted business that worked, but most people don't want to do that. It's a lot more brain damage is what my first mentor would call it for the same result. So if you can reduce your expenses and make a little bit less top line money, it's a less stressful way to get to financial freedom.
Sorry. So just letting David and Morgan know, Justin Camera, we'll probably set you guys up with another live stream. He wants to jump on with you folks and maybe go through like a what did he say? Deep dive financials, like last or best sober living property, I guess, kind of run through some numbers.
Yeah,
So we'll
absolutely.
get you
Sure.
on another live stream. But Alex, the accidental investor, is asking, I'm planning on turning my 4.2 into a 6.3 sober living house. I'm thinking that parking may be a barrier. What are some other challenges or limitations associated with sober living? And he also adds in down here, I want to get a 3.2 by 3.2 duplex to use for sober living.
Mm-hmm.
The parking one's pretty good because
Yeah.
we kind of just went through
I just
that.
wanted to go back into why is he the accidental investor? I think that's more important than anything. So yeah, I agree with you, and I agree with what Alex says. I think parking definitely can be a challenge.
Mhm.
I think you have to think on a minimum. So if you're turning a 4.2 into a 6.3, that's a lot of work. But you have to potentially plan for 6 to 8, 6 to 10 people to live in that house, whether they all have cars. If they do, then how much on-street parking do you have? How big
Mhm.
is your driveway? And we spoke about this the other day, that with regards to when we find a lot of properties, that is something we look at. Are they a double parking spot within, that driveway? We can't look at somewhere where it's a very, very small parking spot. We looked at somewhere actually yesterday
Yeah.
that had a easement for parking, and that obviously would create lots of potential issues.
The parking area was great, but there
Yes.
was an easement for the neighbor behind the house. And, that can be a challenge for them, especially when they find out that it is a sober home, a recovery home, if you will. That would definitely probably cause some tension at some point.
One thing I'd like to ask Alex is, what state is he investing in?
Mhm.
The
He is near Dion, so he's
in Washington State.
Yeah,
Okay.
Pacific
Okay.
Northwest.
So for Florida, probably shouldn't run into this as much up
Mhm.
in Washington State. We have very heavy use with our HVAC units. So one thing that we've run into for the past couple of years is that these homes, they're built out as a 4-2, and they're intended for a family of 4 or 5 people, not for heavy use of 6 adults, 8 adults. So we've had to upgrade a lot of our HVAC in our home to handle the workload of, if we have an addition on that home.
Mhm.
And to also with regards to plumbing, you have 6 to 8 adults using something. It's not like we're at home here and we have 2 adults, 2 small children. So being mindful of a lot more wear and tear on HVAC and plumbing is something to keep in mind, and just having that extra savings to go towards those potential repairs.
And then maintenance. I mean, with 13 properties in Florida, we do at least 2, right, a year for HVAC.
Yeah, you mean a whole new
Yeah,
HVACs?
no, just maintenance on the HVACs.
Oh yeah, so we do biannual maintenance for our HVACs.
Mhm.
So we do it. I do it as a preventative. Obviously, hopefully to increase longevity within the HVAC units. So because there's almost 12 months a year that they use the HVAC,
Mhm.
we are very, very diligent about all of our maintenance,
Yeah.
and having that HVAC maintenance for every single property.
Mhm.
I've got a question for you guys.
True.
Interesting scale question. So think about scaling up. The hospital where I live, they just built a brand new hospital. So they're selling the old one. It's 147,000 square feet, tons of rooms, cafeterias, greeting areas, receptionist areas. It's a hospital. Could you scale that type of business into that? Because it's a $6.5 million purchase.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm just thinking it's got like you could assist the elderly there. I mean, there's so many different things you could do and really service everybody.
I like the idea, like you said at the end, with regards to assisting the elderly. I think that's great. The reason our sober living homes work is because they're a small scale, and because they have the continuity within that home of 6 or 8 people. Their goal is to keep these homes for the next 100 years, and because they don't have to move every couple years to a new home. So they like to have a small scale. That way they recover better. They have a more of a family setting with regards to that small home. With regards to the hospital, I would turn that thing into a assisted living facility, and I
Mhm.
think that'd be an absolute home run, especially looking at demographics and where our country's headed in the next couple of years.
So the next question is from Trisha, who's in the school community. Unfortunately, she broke her foot ankle, I believe, so she won't be able to attend the ORAT event in February. I know she bought her tickets, but now she has to cancel. But she's in South Carolina.
Okay.
Mhm.
She is asking, what is the average rents for sober living? Where does the money come from when many of the people in recovery find employment challenging?
So for our average rent for sober living, we have a 1% rule. It's probably one of with regards to all the different sectors of real estate, we still meet the 1% rule. So we're looking at a house right now in Tennessee. We'll say for all intents and purposes, it's $300,000. We'll make $3,000 off of rent for that home. Where's the money come from?
All the tenants.
All the tenants.
Yeah.
So they pool their money together, and then the rent is cut from the nonprofit. So it's everyone within that house. They all have a job. You have to have a job. You have to be a productive member of society in order to stay within these homes. That's one reason they work.
Yeah, so they might each get their allotted, they might each have to pay $150 a week or whatever have you.
They all
Um,
I'm sorry, with regards to employment, they all have jobs coming into the home.
Yep.
So every single person within our sober living homes, they all have jobs beforehand.
We've had plumbers, electricians, nurses,
You name it.
radio, DJ hosts, just everyday people.
Yep. And
Yeah.
also, South Carolina is a great state too. My sister lives down there. She's in Greenville.
Yeah.
So
I love
Greenville's-
Greenville.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Greenville's good. I'm a little partial to Clemson, but it's a phenomenal state to invest in as well.
I was just gonna bring this up. I was gonna say I am trying to get them to enter school, join school. They haven't done it yet, but a lot of people in the chat are in the school community. But Alex is asking, are you two in school, or do you have any interest?
Yes, Mark mentioned this yesterday.
Yeah,
Morgan
Mark mentioned it to us the
Morgan
other
mentioned this to
day.
me this
I
morning.
sent Zuber a message this morning. I think going into the new year, we're definitely joining.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
We're excited.
I wish we could attend the event in February. Normally we would, but we're going on a family vacation with the
Mhm.
kids. I think the intention would be to go next year as well.
Yeah.
Before we move on to some other question, there was one, not really a question, but maybe we can touch on this because it is Cyber Monday. But Lynn, where did what she comment go? She did say her biggest mistake was getting a timeshare with an ex-boyfriend when she was 22.
Mm.
What would be maybe your guys, maybe could you guys, all of us, stupidest maybe money purchase or something we bought that now we look back on it like, why did we do it? So Cody, maybe you got anything on the top of your mind?
The dumbest money mistake I ever bought was I bought a new car at 21 with debt. And this is something I didn't understand back then, but electric vehicles depreciate like a rock for the same reason that phones do. There's always going to be new technology, which makes the last model kind of lame compared to the new one. So I bought a brand new Tesla with a low interest loan, paid like 60,000 all in, and today it's worth 10.
Mhm.
So that sucked. And I see how when people get a nice car before they get any assets, like I'm grateful that I have properties. But if I didn't have any properties, I would feel so, even if I paid it off now, I'd feel so behind
Mhm.
because I would have spent 60 for something that's worth 10, and now that could have been a down payment on a duplex.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Do you folks
Okay.
have one besides that custom home you built? Maybe I don't know.
I mean, the custom home just stands out.
I was thinking the timeshare is awesome. Where is it? I will totally go there.
But I agree with Cody though with the car.
Yeah, yeah,
the-
because
I
yeah,
mean-
I don't want to say you, but
Yeah, we did the
my
same
wife might have
thing.
wanted to buy a Volvo XC90. It's really nice, but holy
After we
moly.
had our kids, listen, Dave and I were car payment free. He had his Honda Accord from 2004.
Best
We
car
sold
ever.
it a couple years ago. The only car he ever had. I had a Honda CRV, loved it. It was 10, 11 years old. Having no car payments was amazing.
Yep.
But then when those itty bitty babies came, I said, well, since Dave's a state trooper, let's see what the crash test would
Yeah,
look
I
like
mean, it
on a
has-
CRV.
It's one of
Um,
the safest vehicles you could ever have.
So then we built a Volvo a
Yep.
couple of years ago.
Fun fact: Volvo actually they developed the seatbelt,
Yes,
so there's that,
they
and
developed
they
the
also
seatbelt,
developed the booster seat.
the booster seat. And I think they introduced I got to look this up, but I think they introduced the car seat patent years and years and years
Yeah,
ago.
yeah.
Anyways, all these cool features, beautiful car, love it. It is partially hybrid too, Cody. So we plug it in sometimes to save on gas. But at the end of the day,
But that's over $1,000 we pay every month. It's
yeah, for a car payment,
$1,060 for
$1,060.
Yeah.
So I mean, ridiculous. But I would have probably purchased one that had 20,000 miles on it and saved a
To
lot
save.
of cash.
Absolutely,
For
absolutely.
sure. So cars and mortgages, cars and personal residence and
Yep.
high rents.
To that point, though, had you gotten in a crash, you might have saved on medical.
Yes,
Right.
there's that.
There's
yes.
hindsight,
Mhm.
Cody. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
I think maybe new people to my channel may not have heard me speak about it before, but a lot of people from the beginning know that I used to spend a lot of money on my home gym equipment. So my home gym was probably could have bought a house in Pittsburgh or somewhere.
Yeah. But
And
health
then
is wealth.
Then I had to move. Well, you don't need. I have different bars for different days of the week and different
Mhm.
holidays, and
Oh my
I
gosh.
had yes. So, and then I had to move all of it when I rented out my place. So that was another pain. But we'll get to some serious questions now. So Alex is saying, what are some barriers or resources to getting started? Are there programs out there that help support the launch of a sober living home?
Mm.
So I have explored one program within Florida to get into sober living. their interest rate to get into it was not worth it. You'd be better off saving the money and going with your normal, mortgage broker, bank, whatever have you. So unfortunately, I would say, I mean, I don't want to say unfortunately, but I would just save the money. I would cut expenses, personally, if you have to, and just save that money. And then just like any other home or apartment complex or whatever you want to get into, I would save the money for that. Um, yeah, there's not too many programs that we've found to get you into that space.
I mean, very.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh no. I mean, we just have experience in Florida. That's primarily where all of our homes are. So I couldn't
Mhm.
speak on anything else.
Alex is also saying yes. Bring the kids to Vegas. And
Yeah,
we
we
were
talked
going
about
to-
that.
I think we will next year.
Yeah.
We'll drop them off somewhere on the strip and then we'll come over to the Zubris thing.
Because
But-
it's funny because our son is 8. He turned 8 in July, and we give him little homework assignments. And Dave will print off a list of all of our homes, and then Theo will do the cash flow
Yep. So I'll
every
break it
month
down
for
onto,
us.
I'll put it all into whole numbers, and then he has to, do out the math for everything.
Yeah, and then Zuber challenged him actually to reading his book one rental at a time, and then Theo's gonna do a little book report on it and report back. So that's something we're
Nice.
working on. Yeah.
Cody, this person is tuning in from your channel. Marlon M says, "Love y'all content. How do I know if my market, Montgomery County, Maryland, is at the bottom or at the peak, or what phase is in? Thank you all so much."
To know if it's at the bottom or the peak is going to depend on your time horizon. Because if you think about it, look at an appreciation chart for that area, right? It can go up, it can go down, but if you zoom out long enough, it's either trending upwards or it's trending downwards. It's probably trending upwards. So that's going to depend on your hold period and your strategy. If you're trying to do flips, then you're going to have to really focus on that question a lot more. If you're focused on cash flow and long-term holds, then I wouldn't worry so much if you're at the peak or if you're at the valley. It doesn't materially matter. Like, I know everybody on this call, like, it would say if it cash flows with long-term fixed rate debt, I just want to get more of that. Because we're not buying to get a capital gain. I mean, capital gain could build a luxury house, but you're still going to have the taxes. And then you got to do it again. I imagine your guys' cash flow can be pretty strong on these houses compared to just renting out a residential house. And that's why you do it.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
So,
And we're not tied to the market. It could be up, it could be down, it doesn't matter. And no matter what, with regards to the market as a whole, even if if we have a down year, we're still investing, because like Cody said, and I agree 1,000% what he said, if you look at your horizon in the next 20 years, you're not going to look back and say, oh, no matter what, you're going to be happy you invested. Just like COVID was a great example. Everyone that invested during COVID, you invested, you're not sure where the market's going to go. Obviously ends up going up and ends up being a plus for everyone, but we weren't sure. And, that's just a snippet of when we started. But I think, like Cody said, any time is a good time to invest.
Yeah, you kind of touched on it. I would just say, like, you brought up COVID, right? So you can't, and Cody talks about what's your time horizon. So just, you want to step back and look at a longer timeline possibly. You don't want to because if you just look at the COVID timeline, it's going to be very volatile, right? And whatnot. So that might skew your feelings at what the peak and the bottom is. So always step back and you kind of look at a bigger time horizon. Hyder does have.
I was just going to say, if a COVID situation happened, we'd all be rich.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
Hyder says, question, what's the title of the people living in sober living? Tenant, member, patient. It's easier to terminate a membership than tenancy.
So I refer to them as tenants. We have a very good relationship with all of them. Don't get me wrong, there are tenants, but on Thanksgiving, I'm on my phone messaging every single house, wishing them a happy Thanksgiving. I check in weekly to make sure that everyone's doing well, but that's not necessarily a norm. That's just kind of me. With regards to terminating somebody within a house, if they go back down the road of, alcohol or narcotics, that's a no-no for the nonprofit. So they're immediately terminated. They have a lease with us, but then they also have a lease with the nonprofit. So the nonprofit keeps them accountable even more so than we do. So there's they just have to follow those guidelines, and it's as simple as that.
Mhm.
Alex follows up with, how do you decide how many people per house?
So we, just like you said earlier, Alex, that we look at the rooms in the house. If there's 4 rooms, 6 rooms, that will determine how many people we can fit in the house. If you have a larger, suite in the house, then you could potentially split that into 2 beds into that room,
Mhm.
or you could even physically put up a second or another wall into that room.
They also have to be comfortable too.
Absolutely.
And the majority of our houses are like 7 to 9 people. Very
Mhm.
rarely do we go above that, because they all need to coexist with each other and also be comfortable, and they're all paying rent. So it would be unfair to stick multiple people in a house. It just doesn't work. It's not good for them. So they need a little bit of space to spread out.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, our homes are in the lower 2,000 square foot side.
Mhm.
They have, potentially 5, 6 people, but they're upwards to almost 3,000 square feet. They're pushing 6 to 8 people.
And to go back a couple of questions ago about the parking situation, I think Alex had mentioned it. A lot of these people that have gone through recovery, a lot of them don't have cars or vehicles. There are some that do, but when we find our buy box and we are looking for these houses, we're always within walking distance to a bus station,
That's a good point.
or any kind of public transportation. So there's not going to be as many cars per people in the driveway. Some of our houses may have 2 cars, some of them might have 4 cars, but there's never like an excessive amount, although parking still is important.
Absolutely.
They're not all going to have their own vehicle. A lot of them, going for narcotics and all that kind of stuff into recovery, they come out with as little as they need, to get back on their feet.
So you folks kind of touched on buy box, and people are asking questions about what type of properties, but also Cody, going back to your video a little bit with Zuber, but like, how realistic is it for someone to find a house hack where they can add a unit or 2?
I'd say it's very realistic, but it's going to come down to your ability to see what's in front of you. I always relate it back to being a kid. My mom would say, grab the ketchup. And apparently it was on the second shelf to the right. I never saw it. So whatever's in plain sight is, that's what you're going to have to figure out how to see. Because some people will look at a 3-bed, 2-bath house and the way it's laid out and say, this could be a 2-bed, 1-bath, and a 1-bed, 1-bath. Or some people will be able to look at it and say, there's no way you could split this up in a cost-effective manner and then move on. You got to start looking for that stuff. And it's typically going to be the deal that sits on the market for a little bit. I mean, most of my deals where I've split up units have sat on the market because they're weird properties. I bought a 5-unit that became an 8-unit, and it was on the market for almost a year. Bought a 12 that became a 13. That was on the market for almost 2 years. And so stuff like that. And there's other projects, but it's the oddball properties that sit for a while. And it's up to you to find the creative solution to make it a winner deal. It's not going to be like the perfect house or the pristine duplex, the townhome duplexes. It won't be any of the townhome properties. It might be like the up-down duplex that you could turn into a triplex, or a multi-generational house that you make the official split on. My buddy bought one of those. He bought it's like a house with an ADU, but they were connected by stairs. And so he just got them completely separated. My wife did the same thing in Tennessee where we used to live. So she bought a house that had an up down and split it and rented it out as 2.
I guess, are you apparently having a meetup with Alex on Friday, Cody? Cody, he said he's saving all his questions for you.
Oh, the resort that
okay.
I used to own, I sold out. Turns out I'm too poor to own a resort. So sold out of that. And my buddy who bought me out is running an event. So I told him I would help. And so I'm going to be there. I'm going to make tacos, and I'm going to be answering questions.
Oh, and
Nice.
Flavio,
Let's
you
fly-
better be there too, man.
Let's fly to Washington for tacos.
Yeah.
They will be
Cool.
they will be good tacos.
We talked about it on our long form interview, which was, like I said, dropped yesterday. And you also mentioned it on your episode with David Green. But like Alex is saying, right? My house is close to a bus line and not far from my work hub. But can you guys touch on what David Green mentioned in his when he thought he was going to have some kind of sober
Oh.
living opportunity and it fell through?
Yeah, don't get that house near a liquor store. That doesn't help anyone.
Yeah.
So
That's what he
David
did.
Green had mentioned that they found a perfect house, and I mentioned the other day too. We found a perfect one in Miami. Loved the home, but the home was right around the block from a liquor store. So that's kind of a no-no and doesn't help anyone. But as long as it's, I mean, like you said, Alex, being right near a bus line, being right near a work hub, that's perfect.
Mhm.
Absolutely perfect. And that's what we look at as well, making sure there's a bus line, you're right near amenities, whether it's a big box store, that helps tremendously.
Mhm.
Sorry, I skipped over Trisha's question, but she says, as a nurse, what is your liability specific to sober living?
So with regards to our liability, we're just still under a normal insurance policy for our home. So it's just a normal rental and a normal or whatever insurance policy that we carry.
Mhm.
And I did hear, I think I heard Cody mention Tennessee, and then that's actually where you folks' next
Yes.
property is going to be. So why the
Yeah.
pivot though, or why leaving Florida to go to Tennessee for your next new property?
So
I think we wanted to diversify. I mean, we have 13 homes in Florida, all over the state, except for Miami. And I think diversification is really important. And when you're in the sober living community, I feel like as an investor in that aspect, there's so many overhead costs and stuff that you run into. And obviously in Florida, insurance is like the number one thing. There's a lot of different types of insurance. And I think moving to a state that doesn't have an ocean right there
absolutely.
is pretty helpful with that regard.
Yeah, I think Tennessee is an absolutely home run state.
Mhm.
Anything on the southern states, Tennessee, the Carolinas, Florida, Texas, those are all absolute home runs.
Mhm.
But yeah, to mitigate some of the costs with regards to carrying high insurance because of hurricanes. Tennessee is great. We talked about it the other day. Obviously, the topography is a little different than Florida that we found, but nothing but good things to say about Tennessee so far.
So we kind of have two different paths here. David and Morgan, you folks, I believe touched your retirement accounts, things like that to get started. And Cody did a lot of seller finance type creative deals to start his journey. But how much money does someone truly need to start on this path, getting ready for 2026? So Cody, what would you say?
If you're doing the house hack route, you got to look market specific. If you're in a market like where I live right now, Central Washington, you can buy a fourplex between $400,000 and $1 million, depending on how nice or how less than you buy. And on the west side, where I'm from, you could buy a quadplex anywhere from, I just saw one get listed this morning, a place called Belfair. I mean, Dion talks about this a lot. If you live where a lot of people don't want to live, you can get good prices. So there's a quadplex, 2-bed, 1-bath townhomes in Belfair that just got listed for $519,000. In that situation, if you assume you're putting 3.5% down, because a deal like that should hit the seller finance route, you don't really need any money, but you probably don't have the confidence yet to do that deal. So FHA would probably be a good way to go.
David and Morgan, do you guys have any different thoughts? If you were starting today, right out of high school, maybe, or
out of high school, I would have spent that. I would have. I couldn't have done that. Let's fast forward to my mid-30s. So for our first property, to give you an idea, we put 20% down.
Yep.
And yeah, that's a huge monster to
Well,
put
do the
down.
numbers. Cape
Well,
Coral.
Yeah, so it was
Cape Coral.
270,000, put down 20% of that. And like Cody said perfectly, having reserves, and then having that percentage point to put down. Moving forward, you can look at, and I agree with him, look at FHA loans. You can look at, whether you're going to use that home as a vacation home, as a second home, and be in that property for X amount of weeks until you turn it over to a rental. That's another option. And we did that for first couple of homes. We would just use them first couple of weeks, use them as a vacation home. Then you turn them into rentals. You put less down, and but now within DSCR loans, we're at 20% down for everything.
Mhm.
So yeah, I agree with Cody. You need to obviously have that percentage, whether it's the FHA, you put that amount down, and then just have reserves. But it's something that's achievable for everyone.
Yeah.
You brought up something. You mentioned DSCR. So for sober living homes, DSCR, is it still just kind of like your traditional long-term rental?
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So
s-
once we hit 10 properties,
Mhm.
we had to switch over to a DSCR loan.
Yep.
But I mean, is it so like, DSCR is typically is the rent based on the payment, right? So is it kind of a straightforward, it's still kind of considered a long-term rental, or does sober living have its own kind of DSCR category?
No, it doesn't. It's still falls within, quote unquote normal mortgages.
Mhm.
So no separate category for sober living homes.
So with sober living homes, how do you measure success? Is it more financially or socially, you think?
That's a good question.
Yeah, that's a really
That's a
good
really good
question. Did you
question.
ask that, Mark, or did somebody ask that? Is that
That's
from
just
you?
something I came up with on AI.
Wow,
I-
ChatGPT really knocked out of the park with that one.
I mean, I think it's all of it, right? I mean, with individuals that have gone through a recovery program, because these people have all gone through a recovery program, and this is the phase of them going on to continue living their life, right? Sober. I think in terms of our home specifically, it's a social environment for them. They have to learn how to coexist with each other. They have to learn to, they take a lot of pride in living in these houses, and they all have certain jobs. And I think for them, it's social, and, they have to work to build money to live there. So they have to just do their normal job and pay rent and take care of their home just like anybody else would. So I think it's all the above.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. The financial aspect is great,
Mhm.
and yeah, we do well with the sober living homes. However, I would say when we send, Mother's Day hits, we send flowers to the homes with mothers in them. I think we have 2 women's houses. That's awesome to get a card from one of our homes, or a text message and say thank you. We don't feel forgotten,
Mhm.
and that's one thing that I've found within Florida. All landlords, with regards to what we do with sober living, are not created equal. And there's a lot of them that just treat it as a business. And I think for us, the difference is not necessarily treating it solely as a business, but to humanize it as well.
Mhm.
And I think that's one thing I've really enjoyed for the past 5 years, is to really give back to people.
And I think it also helps too, obviously, like just being a nice human in general, but they really care for our houses. They keep them up. They make sure that they are taken care of, they're maintained, things are clean, the property looks nice. So we give a little bit, and obviously they take pride
Absolutely.
in the house, which, I mean, we're not there. So it alleviates a lot of stress on us too.
Yeah.
So we just had Thanksgiving, we got through the holiday weekend. What limiting beliefs do you see most at family gatherings when money comes up? Cody, you want to go first?
I have some family members that think everything just works for me,
That's a good one.
and that some people just get it and some people don't, which is unfortunate because they don't see everything. I'll send them pictures. They're like, "Oh, don't send me that." I'm like, well, I need to send it to you because you think everything just works. So, I mean, that's a limiting belief, thinking that just some people can get it and some people can't, which is unfortunate because I heard it at this Thanksgiving. It's like, oh, you're so lucky. Like, you know what? Yes, I am.
David and Morgan, any?
Oh,
I think too, well, we have a
I'll touch on it.
very intimate Thanksgiving gathering. We didn't have
Just our
a
immediate
extended
family.
family this year. You know,
I
people
got
don't
one
see
after.
that, like with Cody, like, oh, you're so lucky, and people don't see the 80 to 100-hour work week you have and the constant stress and all of the behind the scenes. They might see just all the good stuff. So I think the lack of knowledge can be pretty challenging, and we're kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum where we haven't really discussed what we do with family and extended family. They're kind of on a need to know basis, and most of them don't really know. They might have their assumptions, and now that we've done some podcasts and they've probably seen things, but we don't get any positive reinforcement. We don't get like, hey, you guys are awesome, great job. We don't need that, but they don't validate it either. So I think that's interesting. Our immediate family will, like
Yeah.
his parents, my parents. But
Yeah, I got one to kind of touch on with regards to that. Not necessarily family, but I get it a lot at work.
mhm.
And, working with other investigators, everyone, I always get the comment a good amount, and I'm sure Cody gets this, is it must be easy.
Nice, or must
And,
be nice.
or it must be nice, and it drives me insane. And, I don't, and I agree to Cody's point that people don't understand the work behind it. They don't understand, late nights, trying to get deals done, having the, discussion with your, lender, your insurance company. And I think that's always lost on everyone, that it is a lot of work. It's worth it, absolutely
Mhm.
worth it. But it's, it's a lot of hard work, especially, having a family, and then having, your 9 to 5 and everything.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, our friends are probably our biggest cheerleaders, the ones that really know what we do. But we tend not to really discuss it much unless somebody has a question. We just kind of keep it a little private to ourselves because it's our thing. And I think we just don't want the negativity or the questions.
Must be nice was going to be my response to this.
It is nice.
Yeah.
Agreed. Traveling is nice and taking vacations is nice, and we wouldn't be able to kind of live that lifestyle had we.
Yeah, and I think it's just short-sightedness sometimes, obviously,
Mhm.
with my coworkers, but having that goal and seeing where, this was an earlier conversation we all had, but seeing where do you want to be in 10 years? Where do you want to be in 20 years? And if you understand that horizon and where you want to get to, sky's the limit.
Well, yeah, and the thing on that comment, it's like, it must be nice. It is nice, and that should be the motivator to do it.
Mhm.
Yep.
Absolutely.
It's usually the tone that it comes out.
Yes.
Shoot, what was I going to say now? What was I going to? Oh, this is a question that always comes up. Cody's kind of touched on it recently, but a lot of people always want to know: do couples your banking account? Is it shared? Do you guys have separate accounts? How do you handle that?
We have, I mean,
We have a shared account.
Yes.
There's no other way to do it.
we
I
used to
think.
have a separate account.
Years
then,
ago,
but
we
then I think
did.
I saw Grant Cardone, him and his wife have a shared account just because you were that much more successful if you have a shared account. So I
Yeah.
was like, all right, there must be something with it.
Yeah, shared account all the
So-
way.
Yeah, no secrets. Maybe Christmas secrets, that's it, but no secrets otherwise with regards to financials.
And Cody, like you said, you recently just got married, right? So has anything changed on that front of the finances for now that you are married?
We have a joint account. We each put $2,000 a month into it on autopay. And every week we go through all of our other accounts together. It would take too long. I mean, that's an excuse. It would take a lot of effort to add her to all of my accounts.
Mhm.
And it would take a lot of effort to add me to all of her accounts. Because we bank in multiple different states, lots of different banks, which, again, part of the convoluted, grew too big, too quickly, made mistakes. So there's a lot of banks everywhere that have money. And a lot of accounts that necessarily don't. And so we either have to shut them down or add each other onto it, which that's just going to take a while. But we go through all of our accounts. We go through our credit card statements. It is a very much so joint effort. And we're allocating money very intentionally. So we do basically a Dave Ramsey $0 budget. And part of staying broke, all money goes somewhere. So like it's either going to go somewhere that you don't know about, or it's going to go everywhere you know about. And we live by the latter of those two. And so it's very disciplined. We have money going towards, we'll have the car paid off this month, the final car. We had one we just paid off, and then no more car loans. So excited about that. Right. Just paid off last of the credit cards. So that's fun. She paid off one of her 0% interest lines of credit a few months back. And we have a very clear vision for what we want. And for that reason, we share all the info.
How does Alex's plan sound to you folks? I'll be setting up my current residence to be a sober living home and moving into a house hack duplex 3.2 by 3.2. If the first model works, I can turn the duplex into a sober living.
I don't know about turning a duplex into a sober living. I mean, we've never done it, so I can't really necessarily speak to it. We just do single family homes.
I mean, we did have an ADU on one of our properties, didn't we? No? Oh, okay, never mind.
So, just having, we just do a single family model home. That's it. But that's awesome. You're going to be doing multiple things. I can't even imagine. Yeah. So doing house hacking and sober living home, you're just checking all the boxes.
What's the biggest myth about sober living you hear from other investors?
I think the biggest, I want to say myth, but I would say just a negative connotation with regards to sober living.
Yeah, absolutely.
That we hear from other investors, but other people as well within, our circle of looking at it. And to be honest, I had that as well, just as a state police trooper at the time of what is this home, and at the time going and making arrests at domestic, you name it. And so I had to be educated myself with regards to these are normal people, normal 9-to-5 jobs, and they're productive members of society. They've just fallen off the bandwagon a little bit. Was that a cat? And
I think like if things happen too within the home, if somebody relapses or there's a fight, because we've had to deal with a lot of that kind of stuff, it gets mitigated right away. And it just continues on. There's always a need. That person, if they get, if the tenant relapses and then they move on, they immediately get kicked out of the home. They'll put them into a hotel for X amount of days or whatever until they have to go back into recovery or wherever on their next journey. The houses get filled, so there's always somebody that needs a place to live. So it's a pretty smooth,
very much smooth, very smooth
operation. I think that's it.
So Janelle says it's not easy to share progress and wins or feel supported by family when it comes to investing, which is why the ORAT group has been such a great fit. And that's another reason why David and Morgan should join school also. I'll throw that out there. Cody is also a big part of it. He runs the Gen Z call. Gen Z Plus, we'll clarify that.
Mark's always there, and he's... I think he's like a millennial or something.
Yes, it's definitely not a Gen Z. There is a few Gen Z in there, but
we're millennials.
It's plus.
We're millennials. Yeah, so we'll be with you.
I don't know. I don't know. I never know.
I don't know. I'm a Gen Xer, man.
Are you? Yeah.
I may act like a millennial or what.
Because you're almost 41. You're a millennial. I'm gonna be 40 next year.
Yeah,
so I think we're the millennials.
I'm 40.
Yeah, whatever. 40. You're gray.
Let's see. We'll wrap it up maybe with what do I got?
I know I do appreciate her comment because it is hard to share. If when we close on a house, we have a little celebration as a family, and we'll go to dinner or
something small,
just something small. But it is hard to share because I feel like Dave and I are your everyday couple. I was a teacher. He's in law enforcement. We started real estate, and I think it is hard for people around our age and who are doing the daily grind at their W-2 and family and kids and activities, and life isn't cheap.
Yeah.
And I think, not saying we've experienced jealousy in any way, but I think there are a lot of people out there that might get jealous or, have negative things to say when they see other people succeed, which is obviously a reflection on them and not us. But
Yeah, I was going to say, Mark, yesterday when we had that conversation with regards to you saying that the Aura event for both of you is just
Mhm.
more of a family, almost as family coming into that event, which is nice to hear. It's not necessarily a large scale conference where everyone's lost and, you don't have good direction, but everyone's in the same community, which is
Mhm.
nice.
How long did it take you guys to become $1 million in debt? For those that are like, "Oh, you have it so easy."
I would say easily within 1 year.
Maybe less than
So yeah,
that because we
yep.
bought our first house and then 4 right after,
Yeah,
right?
we purchased our goal,
Very
Cody,
quick.
was to purchase 10 homes in 10 years. That was
Mhm.
I thought that was a
1
lofty
home a
goal.
year was, like,
Mhm.
pretty good
Which I
for
still think
us.
honestly is you do your obviously one rental at a time is still a great
Mhm.
goal. There's
Mhm.
nothing wrong with it.
That's absolutely a phenomenal.
Cool.
Let's see. Oh, Cody, what's the one thing you wish someone told you before your first deal?
That's a good question too.
Mhm.
One thing that someone told me that they didn't tell me for my first deal. Mm, I don't. I don't really have anything because I heard enough of the basics to do the first deal. Get long-term fixed rate debt, have cash flow, and margin, and those are all things that I think are good, sound principles. And there's a lot of stuff I wish I knew later about getting into partnerships that I didn't know about because I bought my first few deals and then I partnered with some folks and bought a bigger deal. I wish I knew some stuff before that. Um, if I had to bring it down to one thing, if you don't give up equity when getting started, if you can, don't partner with people. If you have to, because you literally have no other way you can fathom and you've beaten your head against the board for a couple of years, then fine, take on a partner. But I partnered on the third Gateplex, which was my fourth deal. And in the beginning, I had 20% ownership. Today, I have 100% ownership. I will say that was way more expensive than had I tried to borrow my closing costs to buy it. So much more expensive. And we're talking almost $1 million more expensive. So I wish I would have held off on taking on partners.
David and Morgan, any
I agree with Cody, and I think that's a great way to put it. We did the education beforehand. Going into our first deal, I very much knew our numbers where I needed to hit for having cash flow. At that point, I probably listened to thousands of hours of Bigger Pockets and just their episodes, literally 1 through 100. And I did that on my commute to work, to and from back home. And for Morgan, and we talked about this yesterday, which I think was a good point to bring up, is that I listened to the audio of Rich Dad Poor Dad. It was
Mhm.
phenomenal. Morgan listened to it while breastfeeding at night at 2 a.m. But to have both, having your significant other on the same page is huge. One thing, and I agree with Cody, is that not taking on partners. If you're able to do it by yourself or stretch it out so you can do it by yourself, it's just better. It just makes it more complicated having a second person, even if it's a family member.
Mhm.
I don't know if I'd necessarily jump into that. We've been asked as well throughout the years, would you want a partner to create more deals? We'll take on investors, but I'll hold the deeds and everything, and I'll control everything myself. Um, I don't know if I'd want to necessarily right out the gate go into a partnership.
All right,
Yeah.
we'll wrap it up probably with Flavio's question then. But I think this was a great live stream. Like I said, we'll get you folks back on. Maybe we'll run through maybe more like a deal or some numbers you guys
Yeah,
have with
Sure.
Justin Camera. Cody, I'm always grateful for you coming on Mondays. But Flavio is asking, today is Cyber Monday. So is there anything you folks are looking to purchase today on Cyber Monday?
What Christmas presents are you buying me?
Whenever, well, we just signed a deal late last night for Tennessee.
Yeah, our Cyber Deal Monday was buying a house in Tennessee.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
we didn't get a discount on it though. So there was
No.
no discount
Full
on that.
price offer.
Yeah, just obviously everything for the kids.
Yeah,
That's
our
all for the
kids. I mean, our son plays lacrosse, basketball, and golf. Our daughter rides horses. She's 5.5. Equestrian is a very expensive sport, so maybe we'll find some
Yeah,
deals
absolutely.
for her on that. Dave wanted one thing on his wish list, which I got, but you probably don't remember what it was, so I'm not going to tell you right now.
I'm pretty good memory. We'll see.
Yeah.
I won't guess.
And then Built. Zuber always talks about Built clothing.
Yep.
They've got some deals too.
Yeah, I've been looking at that as well.
Dave's been looking to treat himself.
I'm not sure if my dad
on a
bod- I'm
couple
not sure if my
expensive
dad bod can
t-shirts.
fit into it, but we'll see.
Cody, anything for you on Cyber Monday?
I don't shop for anything. I
For
have
your
yet to
cat?
pay
Nothing
off.
for your cat, at least?
No, she got a little feather toy last week.
Yes, Chris Webb is another slacker who hasn't joined school yet. So he is reminding folks that I do offer to pay for people's first month of school. The long story, actually, the short version of that is because Zuber was a speaker at an event out in Hawaii back in, I think it was April or June or somewhere around there. I attended his event. It wasn't the greatest event. He was just a speaker. I think it was a excuse for him to come out to Hawaii.
Mhm.
But he did find out how much the tickets were, and he actually reimbursed me my money.
Oh, wow.
So I told
Awesome.
him that, hey, you know what, I'll just pay it forward and I'll pay for people's first month of school since you reimbursed me. And that's what's been going on. So people have taken advantage of it, unlike Chris Webb or David and Morgan yet. But you folks can all join school. Lynn is saying, though, Canva Business is 50% off, so $10 a month.
Oh, nice.
You bet I already have Canva. Love Canva.
Yeah, we love Canva.
And then Alex is saying, though, and I think this applies to Cody and Ashley also, is you two are partners. So there you go.
Yes.
All right, everyone. Like I said, this was a great live stream. We'll get everyone back on again. And everyone, I guess maybe go look for some Cyber Monday deals and see what's out there to help